Hello everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to talk about what an audio compressor is, how it actually works, and how it can make your song sound a lot better. You can find all the links to great things in the description below, the free project itself, and a bunch of free audio compressor plugins and other stuff that may be useful to you. Before starting, please subscribe to my YouTube channel for free, leave a like and a comment below. This is a very low budget channel, but I'm planning to make new interesting content in the near future. So your free subscription really helps my channel to grow consistently on YouTube. Thank you. Also, this section of the song you're going to listen to in a second is taken from my band's Hybrid Practice second album Realignment. You can buy and listen to all my music on my BandCamp page. Thank you again. In short, you just need to make some small adjustments after you've selected a suitable preset for your needs. Could be bass guitars, vocals, electric guitars, drums. Then, after you've chosen a ratio of about 3:1, start turning the threshold down until you get about 3 to 6 dBs of gain reduction. Then you just need to increase the makeup gain to compensate the volume levels. However, things change a lot from instrument to instrument as we're dealing with dynamic range and not just a standard dull waveform. Dynamic range is the difference between an audio signal's loudest and quietest levels. You can visually see it by looking at the highest and lowest peaks of every audio waveform. The higher the peak, the louder the sound is. So, for example, especially in heavy metal songs and music, you can easily expect a drum snare hit waveform to be a lot higher in volume than, for example, a closed hi-hat waveform. This huge difference in recorded and perceived volume can easily result in a very unbalanced final mix, unless you hired someone who literally could spend his time adjusting each track's volume live while recording your instruments. Fortunately, things are easier with the right technology and audio dynamics processors, such as compressors and limiters, for example. They will do the job for you. An audio compressor is used to reduce a signal's dynamic range, that is, to reduce the difference in level between the loudest and quietest parts of the audio signal itself. There are many types of different audio compressors. Trying to keeping things simple here, so in this tutorial we'll be referring only to single band compressors, meaning that they process the volume level of the whole frequency spectrum you are hearing. Compression is commonly used to attenuate loud transient peaks, for example when a singer suddenly belts out a high note or when an acoustic guitar chord feels just so low in volume compared to the rest of the song. So you want to compress the audio volume to help maintain a consistent level throughout the whole song. Compression essentially causes distortion in a signal, in that it changes the original sound of the signal itself through its processing. A compressor typically achieves this by emphasizing certain harmonics. However, in the end, the common goal of every compression is to make that distortion feel transparent and to create the best sounding audio performance that can exist. When you compare an audio waveform before and after compression, you can see that the dynamic range becomes narrower. The highest peaks and the quietest parts have fewer dBs of level difference between them. The average compressor has 6 main parameters that are important to understand: threshold, ratio, knee, attack, release, and makeup gain. All these parameters are connected to each other, and there's no just a one-click solution to set a compressor in just 2 seconds. You need to listen carefully to how you're shaping the tone of your song. The threshold is the level at which dynamics processing begins. With compression, the threshold sets the level in dBs above which the compressor itself starts to operate. In essence, everything under the threshold will not be processed at all. The ratio setting is the amount of compression that occurs once the signal rises above the aforementioned threshold. Why is it expressed as a ratio instead of just an unit? Well, because it actually refers to the dBs of gain reduction related to the dBs that crossed the threshold. In a standard single-band compressor, a ratio of x to 1 attenuates the signal to a level of 1 dB above the threshold for every x dBs it crosses. I know it sounds scary and difficult, but it's just the most effective and efficient way to define the gain reduction that's occurring and that's making your song sound awesome. Let's take a look at an online graph that's very easy to understand, even for myself. The gray line represents the threshold. The red line shows the response and gain reduction for a 1-to-1 ratio, meaning no compression at all. As you can see, the level in before the compressor equals the level out after it. However, things change a lot when changing the ratio, as you can see by looking at the colored lines. The orange line is a very gentle 1.5-to-1 ratio, where, if we do the math, we can calculate that every 1.5 dBs of input gain above the threshold results in only 1 dB of gain at the output. So, for example, an input level of 9 dBs above the threshold would yield an output level increase of 6 dBs. The yellow line instead shows a 2-to-1 ratio, so, for instance, the same input level of 9 dBs above the threshold would only yield 4.5 dBs of gain at the output. Got it right? 9 divided by 2 is 4.5, right? Just let me stop for a second here. I honestly don't like doing this, but I've noticed that only 10% of you viewers are subscribers. So I want to ask you to please subscribe to my YouTube channel for free, leave a like and a comment below. This is a very low budget channel, guys, but I'm planning to make new interesting content in the near future. So your free subscription really helps my channel to grow consistently on YouTube. Thank you very much for this. Let's make an even more dramatic example here by watching at the blue line. It shows a 9-to-1 compression ratio, which is practically squashing everything into a tube-like waveform. Think, for example, of a classical piece of music, where you can have a very different dynamic range between the quietest and the loudest parts of the song. So, you would need a compressor to make the whole song more even sounding. Also, you can set this to the extreme, for example, a ratio of 20-to-1 as shown by the purple line. In this case, a compressor becomes essentially a limiter, but maybe we will talk about this in another video. In the end, for guitars, bass, drums and vocals, especially in heavy metal, I usually tend to set the compression ratio between 3 and 7, depending on the song and the recorded waveform. For example, the green line shows a 3-to-1 ratio, and essentially here we have the line up and to the right of the 0 dB threshold. For example, an input level of 6 dBs yields an output level of only 2 dBs. The louder parts of the signal are now quieter. If you're familiar with math and equations, here's the exact formula to determine the output level for every case. However, more than math, just use your ears, guys. If it sounds good, then it's good. Did you know that compressors have knees? Puns apart, in reality, the knee setting affects how a compressor behaves with signals that are very near the threshold. Again, don't be scared, just try to visualize what's happening with a graph. Think of it as a narrowing or widening of the threshold point, essentially smoothing out the transition between not compressing at all below the threshold and compressing at the chosen ratio above it. It's like saying, "Hey dude, calm down, you're overreacting, this is just a song, chill bro. Okay, sorry for this. So, for a smoother and more musical handling of compression, you can set a soft knee, where compression turns on gradually as signals approach the threshold and then pass it. Knee is often measured in decibels and indicates the transition band between the regions of action and inaction. Do you still remember when we said that the threshold activates the compressor but not compression in general? It isn't really able to instantly compress the signal and needs time to react as the signal itself bounces above and below the threshold. Otherwise, as you already may have experienced when turning the knobs up and down without understanding what you were doing, if the signal crosses the threshold often, the compressor will create unpleasant artifacts, clicks and noises as it rapidly turns on and off. This is why they created the attack time setting, which essentially sets the amount of time that will pass between when the compressor will go from 0 to full compression, based on the ratio and the threshold settings. However, sooner or later, the signal will eventually drop below the threshold, meaning compression has to stop too. Think of fast snare hits, for example. You don't want the volume to drop and stay low after the first hit, right? Luckily, with the release time, we can determine how long it takes for the compressor to stop compression before essentially being ready again. It's almost the same that happens with a noise gate, but we will talk about this in another video too. Do you recall when I said that a compressor works with gain reduction, and also that after decompression the loudest parts of the resulting signal become quieter? In the end, we are losing volume level after all, we are losing dBs. To compensate for this, we can use the makeup gain parameter to amplify the output signal after decompression has happened, essentially making up for the lost gain. You have to always remember that the makeup gain is most commonly used to achieve an even sounding song, meaning that input RMS equals output RMS. Keep in mind that there are tons and tons of free and paid compressor plugins out there. This is just a simple example of a totally free metal mixing project in Reaper. Instead of software, you can even use a physical audio compressor rack unit that will give you a more analog and saturated tone, but be prepared to spend a lot of money for it. I'm planning to make more and more content like this, so don't forget to subscribe to my channel for free. This is the only real way that helps my channel grow organically. I like rewarding people who subscribe to my YouTube channel, so here's why I'm sharing these free projects with you all. You can download everything from the links in the description below. Thank you very much for watching this video until the end, guys. Stay tuned as I'm planning to release more and more. Bye!